There comes a time in a woman's life when the silence of the universe grows loud. Not with chaos but with calling. A phase when mirrors no longer define her beauty, when approval no longer defines her worth, and when fear no longer determines her path. This is not the beginning of a journey. It is the return to herself. This video has not come to you by accident. It has arrived like a whisper from the deepest layers of your soul, echoing from the unseen realms, because you are on the threshold of becoming. Not someone else, but more fully, fiercely, and fearlessly you. You are entering your most powerful phase. Let us explore what that truly means. The first sign of your power is not found in grand gestures or loud declarations. It is found in the quiet but profound decision to stop pretending. To stop shaping yourself into forms that make others comfortable. To stop performing versions of who you think you're supposed to be. This phase begins not with a transformation into something new, but with the slow, sacred unraveling of everything that isn't truly you. For so long you've worn faces like armor, smiled through discomfort, agreed when you wanted to walk away, stayed when your soul whispered leave. You have been praised for your softness, your patience, your ability to hold things together for everyone else. But underneath that, there was a quiet rebellion growing, a voice inside you that knew this was never the full picture of your power. That rebellion is not rage for the sake of chaos, it is the voice of your authentic self refusing to remain buried. The cost of pretending is high, it drains your life force, dulls your instincts, and makes you question your own knowing. Pretending is a prison that looks like acceptance but feels like exhaustion. You nod and smile while something within you aches to be heard, to be seen in full color, not in muted tones. You play roles so well that even you begin to forget they are roles. But one day something breaks, maybe softly, maybe all at once, and you realize that no amount of external approval will ever satisfy the hunger for inner truth. That is the beginning. In this phase, you stop filtering your truth to make it digestible. You begin to speak not to be liked, but to be real. Your words shift from diplomacy to authenticity. Your yes becomes deliberate, not automatic. Your no becomes sacred, not shameful. You no longer stretch yourself thin to keep peace that cost your soul. This is not rebellion against others, it is a return to allegiance with yourself. You no longer need to be small to be safe. You understand now that shrinking does not protect you. It only hides you from your own power. This does not mean you become harsh or closed off, in fact your softness deepens, but it is no longer a softness born of fear or obligation. It is a softness rooted in strength. You can be gentle without being submissive, compassionate without being depleted, kind without being silent. You begin to understand that real boundaries are not walls but doors. Doors you choose to open or close depending on the energy that stands before them. Your power comes from this discernment, this sovereignty over your own being. As you stop pretending, the masks fall away. Some people will be surprised. Some may feel uncomfortable. Some may fall away entirely. That is natural. When you stop dancing for others' comfort, those who only love the performance will leave. But the ones who stay will see you. And more importantly, you will see you, clearly, wholly, without distortion. You will look in the mirror and meet your own gaze, not with judgment or critique, but with quiet recognition. The person staring back is not perfect, not always polished, but she is real, she is you. And she has waited a long time for your return. This is where your real power begins. Not in what others achieve, not in what others see, but in who you no longer pretend to be. From this space of truth, everything changes. Decisions become cleaner. Energy becomes clearer. You stop leaking time and attention into spaces that do not nourish you. You no longer need to prove your worth because you have remembered that it was never up for debate. Your presence becomes a declaration. Not loud, not forceful, but unmistakable. You walk into a room and something shifts not because you demand it but because your energy no longer asks for permission. It simply exists, it resonates, it reclaims. And it refuses to pretend any longer to step into your most powerful phase as a woman. You must walk through the gate that few willingly enter. The meeting with your own shadow. This is not the shadow others fear in you, but the one you've learned to fear in yourself. It is everything you were told not to be. Everything you tucked away to be love. To be safe, to be acceptable. The parts you silenced, the instincts you ignored, the rage you buried, the grief you pretended not to feel. These are not your enemies. They are your exiled allies. They have waited in the dark not to haunt you but to guide you home. Power does not come from perfection. It comes from wholeness. And wholeness requires that you face the parts of you that were once too painful, too wild, too misunderstood to bring into the light. This phase of your becoming is not gentle. It does not arrive with flowers and affirmations. It comes like a storm. And in the storm you will meet the woman beneath the performance. You will feel the weight of all you've carried, the truths you swallowed, the tears you dried before they ever had the chance to fall. You will see how you've dimmed your light not just for others' comfort, but because a deeper part of believed you weren't ready to hold your full brilliance. You will remember moments where you were told that your anger was unladylike, your desire was shameful, your confidence was arrogance. And you will begin to question who taught you those things, and why. You start to realize that your shadow is not darkness meant to be erased. It is energy meant to be integrated. The anger that once frightened you becomes fuel for boundaries. The fear that once paralyzed you becomes intuition sharpened by experience. The jealousy that made you feel small becomes a mirror showing you what your soul craves but hasn't yet claimed. The sadness you kept hidden becomes compassion. Not just for others, but for the younger version of you who didn't know how to hold it. Each emotion becomes less of a threat and more of a teacher. Each one becomes less of a weakness and more of a portal. As this process unfolds, something deep within you shifts. You no longer fear what lives in your depths because you've made contact with it, and it did not destroy you. In fact, it began to rebuild you. You realize that pretending to be only light is not authenticity, it's avoidance. And power that is built on avoidance will always feel hollow. But when you stand rooted in the full truth of who you are, your joy and your rage, your strength and your softness, your confidence and your vulnerability, you become unshakable not because you are invulnerable, but because you are real. This inner reconciliation does not make you immune to life's challenges, but it changes how you meet them. You no longer abandon yourself in difficult moments. You no longer outsource your worth to people who cannot see you. You no longer seek healing in the form of erasing the past, but in the form of embracing what it gave you. You stop performing healing and begin embodying wholeness. And that wholeness radiates. It walks into rooms before you do. It speaks through your silence. It draws in people and opportunities not because you're seeking them, but because you're now aligned with them. The universe does not give power to those who wear masks. It gives power to those who are willing to look in the mirror and stay there until they recognize everything staring back. Not just the light but the shadow. Not just the beauty but the brokenness. Not just the story others know but the parts only you had. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be whole. And in that wholeness lies the kind of power that cannot be replicated, imitated, or taken. It is not given by the world, and so it cannot be revoked by it. It is the kind of power that emerges from the ashes of your own becoming, and only when you start running from your reflection, and start learning how to hold it without fear. There is a voice within you that has always been there, subtle yet persistent, often drowned out by the noise of obligations, expectations, distractions, and other people's opinions. You may have heard it when you were younger, before the world taught you to doubt it, when your instincts were still unfiltered, when your dreams felt sacred, and when your curiosity had not yet been caged by the need to be reasonable. This voice did not speak in full sentences or grand declarations. It spoke in nudges, in chills across your skin, in the way your body leaned toward or away from something long before your mind caught up. But over time that voice grew quiet, not because it left, but because you stopped turning toward it. You were taught to look outside yourself for validation, for certainty, for rules. You learned to silence your knowing in order to belong, to succeed, to avoid conflict, to make others feel comfortable. And so the voice remained, patient but unheard. This phase you are entering, but one the universe reserved for your most powerful becoming, requires that you return to that voice, not as a whisper to ignore but as a guide to follow. This is not the voice of ego or fear. It does not come from reaction, insecurity, or pride. It comes from the deep well beneath all of that, the part of you that remains untouched by external chaos. When you begin to hear it again, it may feel unfamiliar, like remembering a language you once knew. It does not yell for attention. It does not argue to prove its case. It simply waits for you to get still enough to recognize it. There will be times when your logic says one thing, and this voice says another. Times when the world praises a path that your soul rejects. Times when staying feels smarter but leaving feels truer. In these moments, the real work is learning to trust what cannot always be explained. You are not meant to navigate life solely with your mind. The mind is a brilliant tool, but the soul is the compass. The mind keeps you surviving. The voice within you, your intuition, your knowing, that's what helps you live fully, honestly, and powerfully. And the more you follow it, the stronger it becomes. It sharpens. It begins to speak louder, not in volume, but in clarity. As you return to this inner voice, you will also begin to notice how much noise you've absorbed that was never yours. Expectations inherited from your family, beliefs planted by a culture that fears women who know themselves, patterns shaped by trauma, by scarcity, by fear. And you will realize that what you thought was your voice was sometimes just programming, repetition, noise pretending to be truth. Peeling that away is not easy. It means sitting in discomfort, questioning things you were once sure of, releasing identities you built your life around. But it is necessary. Because your real voice lives beneath all that, and it is only in hearing her clearly that you begin to walk the path that is actually yours. This path won't always be logical. It will not always make sense to those around you. You may walk away from things that look perfect on paper. You may make decisions that others call brave or reckless or bold. But you will know. You will feel it in your body, in your breath, in a strange sense of peace that arrives not when things are easy, but when they are true. And with each choice made from that place, your life begins to align, not just externally but internally. You stop feeling torn. You stop second-guessing yourself at every turn. You stop outsourcing your decisions to others who do not carry your destiny. You remember that you are the only one who has been with you through every moment of your life. You are the only one who dreams your dreams, feels your fears, knows your wounds, and carries your longings. So it makes sense that the most accurate voice about a life lies within you. Not outside, not in books or gurus or systems, inside, always inside. And as you begin to trust this, you begin to reclaim a power that does not come from how loud you speak, but from how deeply you listen. You were never truly a failure. Failure is something the world taught you to fear, something others projected onto you as the ultimate loss. But deep down, what you feared more was your own magnitude, the sheer force of your presence, the weight of your own voice, the brilliance of your ideas when you let them flow unfiltered. You feared what would happen if you stopped holding back. If you allowed yourself to be seen in full. If you stepped into a room and didn't shrink to make space for someone else's comfort. That fear wasn't born from weakness. It came from a lifetime of being taught that too much ability is dangerous. That too much confidence is arrogance. That too much power in a woman is unnatural. And so you learned to dim your light just enough to be accepted. To soften your edges just enough to be loved. To question your instincts just enough to stay small. But now, something within you refuses to stay quiet. You are starting to feel the tension between who you've been and who you're becoming. You no longer want to be palatable if it means being invisible. You no longer want to be agreeable if it means betraying your truth. You are no longer willing to delay your becoming for the sake of fitting into spaces that were never meant to hold the fullness of your power. This is the shift. Not a dramatic explosion, but a steady awakening. The realization that your power was never outside of you, never something to earn or prove. It was always waiting within you. Asking to be claimed, asking to be remembered. When you stop fearing your power, you begin to understand that it was never about control, never about dominance, never about having authority over others. Real power is presence. It is the grounded, unwavering energy of someone who knows who they are and no longer seeks external validation to confirm it. You start to feel a new kind of confidence. One that doesn't need applause. One that doesn't rely on outcomes. One that doesn't falter when others misunderstand you. It is the confidence of clarity, of alignment, of deep internal permission. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer entertain spaces where your silence is expected in exchange for acceptance. This power is not loud unless it needs to be. It doesn't perform. It doesn't chase. It radiates, and in that radiance something magnetic begins to happen. You attract people, opportunities, and experiences that are aligned with your frequency. Not the version of you that was edited, filtered, or afraid, but the version of you that exists when you are fully rooted in your truth. And even when discomfort arises, when others feel unsettled by your expansion, you do not apologize for it. Because you know that your growth is not a threat, it's a return. A return to the self you were before the world told you to shrink, to behave, to be less. You realize that this power is not about being better than anyone else. It's about no longer being less than yourself. It's about reclaiming the energy you used to spend doubting, explaining, shrinking, and redirecting it toward creating, leading, healing, loving, and becoming. You begin to speak from a deeper place. Your words carry weight not because of volume but because of truth. Your presence begins to alter spaces, not because you are trying to impress, but because you are simply no longer hiding. And that presence, rooted, real, and unapologetic, becomes a kind of quiet revolution. It does not need permission, it does not seek validation, it simply arrives and takes its place. As if it had been waiting all along for you to finally say yes to who you really are. A woman in her most powerful phase does not lead to be seen, praised, or followed. She leads because something within her no longer allows her to remain silent, small, or invisible. She does not seek to control. She simply begins to embody a presence that naturally influences. Her leadership is not about hierarchy or authority, but about alignment. It is the way she moves through the world, the energy she carries when she enters a space, the calm conviction in her choices that others feel before she even speaks. She does not force anyone to follow her. Instead, people are drawn to her because she reflects back something they had forgotten in themselves. Her leadership is a remembering, a mirror, not a command. And it is precisely because she no longer needs validation that she becomes so magnetic. There is a shift that happens when a woman stops asking for permission to be who she is. She stops waiting for credentials, for titles, for someone else to invite her into the room. She understands that her voice carries authority because of her lived truth, her embodied wisdom, and her willingness to walk through the fires that many only talk about. She leads not from a script, but from her scars. Healed not hidden. Integrated not denied. She does not speak about power, she radiates it in the way she listens, in the boundaries she holds, in the stillness she keeps when others react, in the decisions she makes that honor her soul over her image. This kind of leadership confuses the world because it is not loud, not self-promoting, not wrapped in ego. It is quiet but undeniable. She leads from the center of herself, not from the need to be at the center of attention. She has learned that leadership is not about having all the answers, but about being brave enough to ask the right questions. It is not about fixing others but about being willing to hold space for their discomfort without shrinking from it. She does not take the pain of others into her body as she once did. She has learned to hold compassion without self-abandonment, to be present without being consumed, and in that balance she becomes a source of steady power. She leads with empathy, not performance. With clarity, not control. She does not need to prove her worth by overgiving, over-explaining, or overextending. She knows that presence is enough, and that the right people will feel it without her needing to convince them. She begins to choose depth over drama, alignment over attention, impact over approval. And though she may walk alone at times, she is never truly lonely, because she is now in deep communion with herself. That inner connection becomes her compass, her anchor, her guide through seasons of both expansion and stillness. When a woman leads from this place, she is not seeking followers, she is awakening leaders. Her presence challenges those around her to rise, not by demanding it but by embodying it. She does not need others to stay small to feel powerful. In fact, she celebrates the rising of others because she knows that true power is not competitive, it is generative. The more it is shared, the more it multiplies. And because she leads from her essence, not her ego, she is not afraid to be wrong, to be questioned, to be real. Her power is not fragile. It can withstand critique because it is not built on illusion. It is built on the inner work no one sees, the nights of doubt, the choices made in silence, the integrity kept when no one was watching. She does not wear leadership like a crown to be admired but like skin she cannot take off. It is who she is now, not because she chose to lead, but because she chose to follow the truth within herself, and that truth once fully lived naturally begins to lead. Not from above, not from ahead, but from beside, from a place that says not follow me, but remember who you are. If this message has reached you, it is because you are no longer on the path of becoming someone else. You are on the sacred return to yourself. You are not broken. You are not late. You are not too much. You are rising precisely as you were always meant to. This is your most powerful phase, not because of what the world will give you, but because of what you are finally ready to claim within yourself. So walk forward, not in haste but in depth. Let your silence speak. Let your presence transform. Let your becoming unfold. The universe is not watching you. It is conspiring with you. Welcome to your power.